It's time for my explainer tonight. Now, the process of fully constituting the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission has finally begun over 2 years since the 4 previous commissioners resigned. Now, there are 3 commissioners, Chair Wafula Chebukati and 2 commissioners, Abdi, Guliye and Moya. Soon, they will have 4 new commissioners who will be added to the team. The selection panel will conclude the interviews of all the 35 candidates by the date, that is the 22nd of July. There is, however, no clause on how long it'll take them to make their final shortlist and submit those recommendations to the President, which then goes to Parliament before appointment. But no doubt they will want to conclude that process quickly enough. Now, whichever way, the new commissioners, once appointed by the President, will be coming into the commission with about a year or less to the next general election, which is far from Justice Johan Kriegler's recommendation of having them in at least 2 years to the next election. The newcomers will be joining a process that has already begun, with a clock already ticking, processes already underway, such as election security, strengthening institutional capacity, managing and setting guidelines for election observation management, things like voter education, voter registration, and most importantly, procurement of key election materials and an election budget that's already been predetermined. But so, what are the key events and processes in the electoral calendar that they will have to oversee? Well, they include the entire process around party primaries and nominations, which includes ensuring the end of fundraising for political aspirants by the 9th of December this year. Political parties must submit their nomination rules by October this year. Public officials who want to run for elective office must resign by February of 2022. And the IEBC must receive political party membership lists and the names of candidates for the party primaries, and then, of course, oversee those party primaries themselves by April 2022. Now, this entire process runs from October 2021 all the way up until June 2022. Now, there are pre-election preparations from March 2022 all the way up until election day itself. That is the 9th of August 2022. And of course, here you have activities like appointing returning officers and their deputies, gazetting polling stations and tallying centers, opening them up for review to the public, recruiting election officials like presiding officers and their deputies, as well as clerks, training them. Remember, there's also the procurement of election materials that we discussed. I believe that is on the previous slide. Now, there's the licenses for the electronic system, the ballot boxes and the ballot papers. And of course, that process concludes all the way up until August the 6th. Now, of course, looking at the election campaign period that goes, like we said, all the way until just about 48 hours before the election itself. And then, of course, we come to this key timeline here, that is election day itself and the management of the results. The voting process, counting, tallying, announcing the results of the polling stations, and then, of course, there's the electronic transmission of those results from the polling stations and the final announcement of the presidential election results, as well as the others. And all of this must be gazetted by the 28th of August 2022. Now, of course, you have to factor in cases like a dispute and a repeat exercise like what we saw in 2017, and that could go on for much longer. Now, here it is important and interesting to note that for these 4 new commissioners, according to the Constitution of Kenya, they may only end up managing this one election, that is that in 2022, because the Constitution says they must have one term, non-renewable, for 6 years. Their terms will expire in August of 2027. So we may find ourselves at this very place we are today, again in 2027, which is selection of another 4 new commissioners of the electoral management body. So quite a tight schedule that is ahead for those new commissioners once they're selected, recommended, and appointed and begin their work with just about a year to that election. That's our explainer.